Alrighty, welcome back everyone. It is LaughNgamez here. I'm back with another Starcraft 2 1 versus 1 bot AI cast. We are going to be having one of our regular matches here today, but I figured before we jump into that, we can try something new a little bit here. As we are going to be having a micro challenge between two bots that are programmed solely to micro as well as possible. It's going to be a short and sweet introduction to our match of the day, as this is something that also goes on in the scene of bots. I'm not going to give it too much of an introduction, but here we go. We've got Cogbite Micro taking on Oops. Two Terran bots taking each other on. I assume the objective is to kill the enemy team's pylon or to kill all their units, as we've got interesting strategies starting off here with two Marauders going to the high ground for Oops, and then pulling back, whereas one Marine, one sacrificial Marine for Cogbite Micro, goes in, then backs on out. And we've got both sides just being pretty darn passive here for starters. So we're going to see if one of them eventually decides to move out or what. As we do have, okay, there we go. Both sides going to start moving out. Interesting army split from Cogbite Micro, splitting into two even groups, but that's going to give it two even attack paths down this ramp, as Oops is going to be on the defensive as Cogbite Micro comes in with a very cool attack pattern. And seeing as how they both have the same amount of units, if you lose the first units, it's a little bit rough. It looks like Cogbite Micro takes this one, but now we can load on into our first match, well, our actual match of the day. All right, and now we are continuing on with our regular video. I hope you guys enjoyed that little bit of wacky botness at the start. If you want to see more of those kind of things at the start or the end of the videos, let me know and I'll probably tack those on, as it does only take 60 seconds. Those AI challenges are very quickly, as it is just all about the micro, and it's cool to see the different programming approaches, because it is almost a little bit like a game of rock, paper, scissors from my first glance of that, because you do got to come up with a strategy that's going to get a win just by almost countering what your opponent does. There's definitely ways that you could catch your opponent off guard with those, I imagine. It certainly would be a venue for machine learning to take place in such an enclosed environment like that. It would be very easy to do, I imagine, just to run simulations. Well, I shouldn't say very easy, but practical in the sense of AI application we have in this day and age. And so, ladies and gentlemen, make sure to go ahead and click that like button if you haven't already. If you want to see more of these bot games, go ahead, leave a comment down below saying more bots. Join the Discord, which is linked in the comments down below. And there's also the YouTube membership program, which is linked down there as well. Now, as far as this game goes, we have got Cannonana taking on Xena in the top. Cannonana in the top left, Xena in the bottom right, going for a very greedy Zerg build. 3-hatch opening against its opponent in a ZVZ matchup. So that's just being extremely greedy, which we have seen is one of the weaknesses of Cannonana. Now this is Xena Zerg, so it's a mixed bag, different from the Terran iteration of this bot and the Protoss one. Looks like the win rates are pretty darn good for Xena though, so we'll have to see if Cannonana is going to be able to deal with whatever Xena goes for. We see Cannonana letting us know that it sees its opponent's expansion, and then both bots are macroing up, but Xena a little bit quicker. And so now we've got this Overlord just floating on into the main base. No queens are out just yet. That is one of the things about a fast third hatchery. You delay your queens greatly. I'm not sure if Cannonana is going to scout out this third base as soon as it should. We actually have Xena sending a few drones to chase down this singling. That's a nice bit of lost mining time by one Zergling, particularly if this Ling just keeps running in circles, as it can just keep going until that queen's out probably. So that is a nice bit of denial there. And then looks like that Overlord, did it jet on out of there? Oh, pardon me, it's just right in my face. I am just really blind sometimes. The Overlord is trying to jet on out of there, and it should get to that bottom right corner. Meanwhile, this Ling is still running around. This is actually denying a lot of mining time for its opponent. I'll say that's really important, though, seeing as how Kananana is on a much lower economy than its opponent. Kananana is doing that safe Zerg macro thing that it does so well, but it can be exploited a little bit by these greedy plays. And we're going to see if that's one of these games or not. It is actually so big how one Ling, that was probably like a solid minute at least, that one Zergling kept 4 or 5 drones busy. So that's a good bit of harassment in the early game. Just Xena having programming to deal with cheese and things like that, but sometimes the programming overreacts. And it's about finding that fine line as a bot author to where you have a bot not reacting to certain things as seriously as it should, or if you program a bot to defend a cheese, you might make it over-defend if your opponent throws down like a single pylon or something like that in your base. It's very difficult to program that. And so these bots have got very good responses, all things considered. Kananana is getting up its lair. Xena already has its up. Both bots are on 42 workers, so things do seem to have evened up quite a bit. 42 workers for Kananana, 50 for Xena, but still relatively close to each other, or they were for a second. We've got Kananana making many more units than its opponent, whereas +1 is on the way for Xena. And then, of course, it is going to come down to a fight with the micro, presumably Roach versus Roach, because it is a Zerg versus Zerg. You can't have Zerg versus Zerg without a few cockroaches inviting themselves to the party. Now we have got Roach speed on the way for Xena, so really making use of that layer. Kananana is delaying its macro once more just to make lots of units early on to be safe. And we'll see where the game's going to go from here, whether we get like a 4th base from Xena or if it's just going to power up on 3 bases. Kananana is still scouting all over the place, getting tunneling claws, which I'll say is interesting. It's already got burrow tunneling claws on the way, so having different priorities than its opponent, because Xena has already gone for Roach Burrow and +1, whereas Kananana is just going into tunneling claws, getting up more gases, getting out pneumatized carapace, so its overlords are much quicker. That'll help with potential burrowed Roach versus burrowed Roach fights, actually. And we finally do have an Evo on the way for Kananana, so I'm not really worried for either side at this point in the game. Looks like Xena is moving out with a few Roaches, but it is down on overall supply, or army supply, for now. But it is going to have that +1 attack. However, Defender's advantage is pretty good, so I imagine this should be fine for Kananana. Units can burrow on both sides. I don't believe there's an Overseer for Kananana yet, though, so that's actually quite problematic, as it does have the lair done, but no Overseer is joining the party for this fight. Not many Roaches are dying on either side. It looks like currently 1 dead to 2, as we could have one of those infinity fights going on. Kananana, though, yeah, it is dropping the ball by not morphing an Overlord yet. It should be a fairly simple trigger to have something like this take place, so I'm not sure why we haven't seen that lair be used to make an Overseer to deal with these burrowed Roaches of its opponent. Kananana really is just sitting on top of these Roaches, though, so if they poke up for a second too long, they do get taken out in this case. So we already have seen 10 Roaches die of Xena, so a great start for the Red Zerg. However, that +1 attack will help Xena potentially in the long run. Also, having an Overseer will help Xena in the long run. Kananana finally fires up 2 of its own. Better late than never, that's for sure. We do see the Blue Zerg being pushed away, however, as Kananana does make a nice defense there. Upgrade-wise, Xena is going to be looking to extend that with 2-1 on the way. There's currently just +1 attack done while on the way for Kananana, so it's actually going to be a 2-upgrade lead, which is no joke. Then we've got Kananana going to Infestors, which it's so good with. However, Hydras are on the way for Xena. There's also an Infestation Pit out, and these are the games I love of Xena. The games which it does go a little bit longer, and it doesn't just kill its opponent right away, and we do see the tech get thrown down. I'll put a pin in that for a second, though, as we do see Xena just surge forward. Kananana has a lot of Roaches burrowing and retreating. The upgrade's really shining through right now as it's 1-1 against 0-0 for Kananana. That is actually quite troublesome. Did I totally just jinx Kananana here, as that 3rd base is taking a lot of heat? That is so many dead drones. The presence of Overseers mean they cannot get out of there. The Red Zerg does have a 4th base, but it just lost so many drones we are going to have to see a great fight from Canonana to come back in this game. It's got 46 drones, which is not a great amount. Of course, there is bot speed mining to help compensate for that. Still, though, this is really a scary position for Canonana, being down on supply. If this fourth base gets canceled, that would be a huge blow, as Xena is just showing us how strong its aggression is. We're seeing a nice concave defense, well, offensively, but also defensively. Looks like Xena does pull back for now. Canonana is up to 55 drones again, though, getting out 9 more on the way. And Roaches are still skirmishing in the middle of the map. We've seen Hydras get added in for Xena. They'll be high damage, but they're much more vulnerable than these Roaches, which can just heal themselves up. So that could actually be a big weakness in the army composition of Xena if it dumps money into units that die, whereas these Roaches barely die at all because of that burrow retreat mechanic. These bots, it's a simple HP threshold. They take damage, they burrow, they retreat, they stop getting targeted. And so that could actually be really, really problematic for Xena if it's going to start throwing away Hydras. Like, we've already seen 6 Hydras, 7, 8 Hydras die. That is way too many. So Canonana takes a great fight, forces its opponent back. There is an Infestor, which doesn't quite get caught. It hasn't utilized a spell yet. A big question will be whether these Hydras eventually turn into Lurkers, and no wonder the Hydras are taking bad fights. They don't even have evolved groove spines yet. We almost never see Zergs fight without that upgrade. Xena is going for a bit of a nice counterattack with some Zerglings. Well, I guess just an attack, as there's nothing else really going on. That does get repelled by Canonana, though. That's very nice. The red Zerg is on a massive, massive supply lead right now, being up 30 supply. So those great fights really paid off. The Hydras did not pay off for Xena. We are still seeing the blue Zerg make more of those. And it does seem, just based off the compositions, and maybe just even the individual focus on the matchups, that Canonana just sticking with the Roaches does seem to be the superior strategy so far. Upgrade-wise, things have evened up a little bit. 2-2 is on the way for Canonana. It's currently 2-1 to... Well, now they're actually evened on up, so Canonana's really just going for the throat, and all of a sudden, Xena is really against the ropes. We're seeing Canonana even plan to go to Broodlords behind this. It does seem, though, that the Hydras are really dropping the ball and are just not good units, as they can't just burrow away, retreat, and heal on up. I mean, Infestors are good because they reveal those burrowed units, but wow, I think we may have just seen Canonana kill Xena, and Xena kind of kill itself by switching into Hydras. I do wonder if Xena continued to tech into those Hydras, whether it would, well, if it just continued to make Roaches, if it would have done better. And that really is a big consideration in this matchup. In Zerg versus Zerg, you kind of just want to make Roaches, it seems, as those Hydras were total dead weight. They can't retreat. Roaches are like 5 times as valuable. Maybe that's an over-exaggeration, but kind of not at the same time in this matchup, because they take a little bit of damage, they burrow and retreat, and burrowed Roaches actually heal very, very quickly. They have rapid regeneration. They're, I think, the fastest HP regenerating unit in the game. So they don't even need to pull out of the fight for so long. I'm not even gonna lie, I'm pretty happy with this one. Seeing Canonana get a win when the odds said by Xena were like, it was like 25% odds or less for Canonana to win. So I'm glad to see we did see a nice win from the red Zerg, as it does seem to be on the receiving end of a lot of damage. And I'm glad to see that its greed wasn't punished too much, although it kind of was. Like, Xena had I'll say, a lead in that game. It killed a lot of drones at the third base. Just Xena started making Roaches and threw the game away. And that may be something the bot author may want to consider. Maybe if you're Xena's bot author, run some tests, just get some statistics on maybe run your bot with making only Roaches instead of making Hydras. At the same time, though, maybe that's just a bit of a catch-all in case there's like mutas to make Hydras for Xena, if it doesn't have specific corruptor or anti-air programmed into it, and I'm not sure if it does or not. It's never just that simple, although I think that would be an interesting consideration of Xena's bot author, to run it on the ladder in ZVZ, making Hydras, not making Hydras, compare the win rates, because I imagine this could happen in a lot of ZVZs, as pretty much all Zergs utilize this burrow retreat feature. Who knows, maybe it's just a little quirk. We do see Corruptors even joining for Cananana, as we do see something other than roaches for the Red Zerg. But that's going to be all. Thanks so much, ladies and gentlemen, for tuning in. Leave a like, comment down below, and yeah, shout more bots into the comment section. I'll see you next time. Thanks so much for tuning in.